the truth is,
Yeah.
the chronic disease we're seeing is because people are not eating right.
Welcome to the Alfi Podcast, episode 31 with my friend and very special guest, Dr. Joe Galati. Welcome to the studio.
You know, I, over the years, done media, radio, interviews, but this is fun.
I appreciate it.
This is fun. I mean, this is like your own rig in your office.
It is. Exactly.
Which, not too many people do this, and it's pretty special. So I'm thrilled to be here.
And you do not want to miss this episode. Dr. Galati is the most famous liver doctor.
Yeah. King of all livers, right?
King of all livers, director of liver transplant and medicine at Houston Methodist Hospital, founder of the Liver Specialists.
Liver Specialist of Texas, yeah.
Author of Stop Eating Yourself Sick. Look at that book.
You know, and I took a lot of crap for the title of the book.
Yeah, I think it's a great title.
And they said, well, you know, try to make it more positive. And I said, look, the truth is, the chronic disease we're seeing is because people are not eating right.
Right.
And so we are eating ourselves sick. And so maybe the next book will be something different, but that's what it is now.
I think it's a great title.
Yeah.
And more than that, you've had a radio show on Sirius XM.
Yeah.
For 20 years now.
Yeah, since March of 2003.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Sirius XM a little bit more recently, but iHeartRadio.
Yeah, amazing.
Every Sunday evening at 7 o'clock, I just march out. And, you know, I think that we all have obligations, but every Sunday at 7 o'clock, the light goes on that says live, and you have to be ready.
You got to be ready.
I'm sure you follow this same little saying, if you want something done, give it to the busiest guy.
Yeah, it's actually true.
And so when I hear people, I don't have time, I got this, I'm like, baloney. Come on, make time. If you want to do something, you could pound it out.
And we're here. What is it, 5 o'clock? I know you probably had a full day of patients today.
Yeah, I wouldn't miss this for the world. This is, I'm here.
This is good. And you're not going to want to miss this because we're going to talk about alcohol,
right?
Italian food, biohacking, NAD, brown fat, metabolism, a lot of the liver, a lot of really interesting topics. Yeah. So, and the 3 F words.
The 3 Fs.
The 3 Fs.
Well, stay tuned for the 3 Fs. It's not what you think, but we'll get to it.
We won't drop them yet. I want to start with alcohol.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's an interesting thing, and we'll go over all the topics. But alcohol is a big part of our society and culture.
Right.
I used to drink a glass of wine with meals. I've stopped doing it. I definitely enjoyed it. But it is a big part of our fabric here. And I want to talk about there's a growing rise in population of people that are having issues with alcohol, amongst others. So let's get deep into that.
Well, the backdrop of it is, so people that I'm out with, neighbors, friends, and if we go out to eat or they're at my house or I'm at their house and there's wine or alcohol of some point, people will look at it and say, oh, well, Joe Galati's here, so I'm gonna be careful. And I don't want people to be uncomfortable drinking around me, but the truth of the matter is alcohol, if you'd like to drink, alcohol in moderation is probably okay. Now, the guidelines are for women, 1 alcoholic beverage per day, and that's 1.5 ounces of whiskey, a glass of wine, or beer. For men, it's 2. Now, the research is now coming out that even that may be too much.
Right.
And so to tell somebody, David, go have 2 drinks, you'll be safe. That may not be good advice. The other thing is, people are harboring all kinds of other ailments. Maybe they're diabetic, they have hypertension, they have some heart disease, they have liver disease. And so even having that 1 drink per day will make these other things worse. So while I am not part of the anti-alcohol lobby in any way, I do think that there has to be greater awareness to what you're drinking for you, has to be really, really well thought out. And if the answer is, you know what, I shouldn't be drinking, don't pout about it.
Yeah.
Patients pout to me all the time that, oh, come on, doc, I stopped smoking, I stopped ice cream, I want my beer or two.
This is my vice.
I'm like, bullshit, come on. Don't come to me when something gets bad.
Right, yeah, which is what a lot of people do.
Yeah, and so, the other big part is, in no particular order of things, the researchers show that young women, 25, 35, 40 years old, there is a tremendous rise in alcohol-related liver disease, liver failure, and this is pretty alarming. If you have daughters, granddaughters, coworkers, sisters, this is a problem. And so again, the alcohol manufacturers are definitely, and I don't care what their party line is about responsible drinking, they are marketing the youth. These new alcoholic beverages are cool, sexy. It's a great alternative to having a Budweiser while you're at the pool that you have, White Claw,
Right.
But the amount of alcohol in a White Claw is exactly the same as a shot of wild turkey. So some woman on the side of the, at the beach or your party taking shots of wild turkey isn't too cool, but she's had 3 White Claws. Oh, well, that's okay.
Right, and very easy to drink. They're
very
sweet.
easy to drink. They're sweet. There's a lot of calories, and so it's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, the other sort of rationale, like why is this happening? Well, it's really, you have to look at society in general. So people are getting married later in life. And that means they're having children later in life. And so if you were to get married earlier and have kids earlier, then that acts almost as a social break to say, well, you're 26, you have to be a responsible parent. I'm not going to go party with the friends. Where if you're not married, you're single, or you don't have kids, it's like, hey,
it's a different nighttime routine.
It's a different routine, and so that has to be sort of factored in. It's sort of fascinating to look at it, but it's what we deal with.
Yeah,
and it's sad every single time, David. You see a young woman that comes in either with acute alcoholic hepatitis, or they have progressed to cirrhosis. And they're decompensated, and you're sitting there, not so much saying, hey, you have to cut down on your alcohol, or you already did. We have to talk about a liver transplant now, which is, it's sad.
Yeah,
it's sad.
It is sad. That's no easy course for anybody.
Not at all.
As an oral surgeon, before I was exclusive to orthognathic surgery and jaw surgery, I treated a lot of end-stage liver patients, removing their teeth.
Yeah, we called you all the time.
All the time, right? And my experience, it is very sad. I mean, these people, removing one simple tooth is not simple at all.
No, it's a disaster.
Because the liver
bleed and...
Yeah, they bleed, they can't clot, they're prone to infections.
Yeah.
Yeah, and putting them under anesthesia is very risky. It's a real ordeal.
Yeah.
The liver, it has this, it's known to be able to
regenerate,
to regenerate, right? But obviously, to what extent does it? And then on top of that, we know from medical school, and better than anybody, the functions of the liver. But just if you could break it down for someone that doesn't have a medical background, what does the liver do?
So the liver, you're right, it's involved in well over 200 separate metabolic reactions. So it does everything from make clotting factor, it makes cholesterol, it makes certain vitamins, it detoxifies everything we put in our blood. It makes glucose, and it really, you cannot live without it. So it's pretty amazing. Now, people may not be sophisticated with like how much they know about the heart and the kidneys, the brain, but the one thing they know about the liver is it regenerates.
Right.
It regenerates, and so they think that is their ticket out of jail to say, look, okay, you caught me. I have been really abusing my liver. Dramatic pause, but it's going to regenerate, right? And I'm like, yeah, but your liver has been regenerating for the past 5 years, and now you have cirrhosis. And so when we look under the microscope at a liver that has cirrhosis, we see these things called regenerative nodules. Hence, it's regeneration gone awry. Yeah. So if you are caught early enough, then the liver will regenerate and make completely healthy tissue. But if after a while, and it is dependent on your age, so the younger you are, you've got greater regenerative capacity to get to normal. But if you're 50 and you think that the liver is going to repair itself fully, it's not going to happen. So again, it is take care of your liver, be respectful of the liver, and don't abuse it. I mean, people take better care of their dogs than they do of themselves and their liver.
Yeah, we see that all the time with our cars.
Cars for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting for sure. How much? So when you say a safe amount of alcohol, 1 drink, 2 drinks, female, male, what does that mean? Does it mean safe for preventing liver cirrhosis, or is there a minimum amount of alcohol someone, or what is the least amount that you've seen people end up in trouble with?
Well, there's certainly, like everything in medicine and healthcare, there's some genetic component where we've seen many patients that they are not so much the weekend warrior, which really falls into more of a binge drinking sort of scene. Yeah. But there are people that maybe 2 to 3 days a week, they may have 2 or 3 drinks. They work, they're not derelict on their family, their finances, they're not breaking the law, and they may come in with pretty advanced liver disease. Yeah. So when I see that is a wake-up call for everybody else. That if you saw somebody and you asked them, or you saw them at a party or at work, and they had 2 or 3 glasses of wine on Wednesday, and then on Saturday you saw them another 2 or 3 glasses, you wouldn't really think much of it. But trust me, spend a day with me, and you'll see this. So what's the minimum? I don't think 1 glass of alcohol or a serving is going to hurt you. 2 may get you into trouble. Yep. And the other thing that we're seeing now is, which I'm sure you're dying to talk about this, fatty liver. Yeah. People are walking around with fatty liver, and they're drinking alcohol. So the alcohol by itself may not be a game changer, but alcohol plus having a fatty liver, which you really don't know about, and it creates a colossal problem. So we call it the 2-hit theory. Yeah. 2 injuries it's sort of like 1 + 1 = 3.
Right. And then things get worse pretty fast.
They do. Yeah.
Really fast. And the other part of that, there's the sleep component to it, which our audience is definitely interested in. And I don't think there's any amount of alcohol that avoids disruption in sleep.
I would probably say 1 beverage is enough to really put you into a deeper sleep, relax you, and then that whole obstructive sleep apnea or disturbed sleep is going to happen and just create this whole chain of events. Yep. And so, certainly, tell me, what do you see?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it affects the sleep cycle tremendously. Yeah. It hurts REM sleep. And I think there's this false sense of security, and people say that, no, alcohol helps me sleep.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a difference between falling asleep and having restorative sleep, and that's where I think the issue lies.
Well, the other thing is, and you're seeing these people all day long.
Yep.
How many people don't feel well? Oh, yeah. They just feel bad, and they can't quite put their finger on it to say it's their stomach that hurts, their head. They go to bed tired, they wake up tired, the middle of the day they're tired. Right. And I think a lot of this traces back to a bad night's sleep. Yeah. A bad night's sleep. Either they have poor sleep hygiene, they have some sort of obstructive process related to alcohol or not related to alcohol. They're obese.
Right.
It's a mess out there. The state of affair. We are not getting healthier. And that's the sad part.
No,
with
definitely not.
All the technology, wearable devices,
right.
the internet.
Yeah, a lot of tools and resources.
A lot of tools, and I can't say that the needle really has moved all that greatly.
Yeah, people are getting fatter.
Huh. Yeah,
that's not a secret. And when you say fatty liver, is it the obesity issue?
It is. So if you were to, well, first of all, I mean, in round numbers, there's approximately 100 million people in the United States. Mm-hmm. That's about a third of the population that has evidence of a fatty liver, probably on some sort of imaging study.
Wow.
From
a third.
A third.
Wow.
Yeah. So out of that category of people with fatty liver, they're maybe about a third. They are going to progress to more advanced fibrosis and cirrhosis and liver cancer, and then they need a liver transplant. Mm-hmm. And so the root of it, and I write about it, talk about it. If there's no obesity, I would say there's no fatty liver.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little bit of a dogmatic statement, but I really do think we have to look and say, on one end, we have fatty liver because of obesity, get rid of obesity, and we have no fatty liver. And the amount of time and resources that's going into this is, we should be ashamed. Mm-hmm. We really should be ashamed to think that a dietary set of decisions that you have been making for 20 years, your decision not to exercise, your decision not to get checked up, we are going to swoop in and save you with a multi-million-dollar treatment, the liver transplant. And it makes no sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right.
And I don't know how much trouble you have dealing with getting dietary consults or nutrition consults. Mm-hmm. They're not covered by insurance.
Yeah, actually,
unless you're diabetic and you have kidney disease and things like that.
I think it's such a critical thing to look at that we actually hired a nutritionist.
Yeah.
We have a nutritionist here that I actually pay her to see patients before jaw surgery.
Yeah. Well, that goes along with your whole setup here. That
Yes.
You are patient-centered, and I don't know how many specialists in your field are doing this.
Right.
I'd probably say
I don't know anyone that has a nutritionist. We have a nutritionist and a psychiatrist on our team that I reimburse them to see our patients.
Yeah.
To try to optimize their well-being. So the obesity problem is an issue because especially we do jaw surgery. We make the airways larger by bringing the jaws forward. But I can bring the jaw forward from here to New York, and if somebody gains weight, they're going to obstruct.
Right.
And I think it's an increase in 10% of body weight is a 6 times increase in obstructive sleep apnea.
Yeah. It's not that much.
Yeah.
And losing 10% is very helpful.
Exactly. And losing 10% is very helpful. So, one thing I try to talk about a lot is exactly what you're saying. There's a high dependence. I don't know what it is culturally. I don't know if it was always, I don't think it was always like this, but it's dependence on medicine and the medical system to take care of people. And there's not a lot of accountability.
No. I like to call it the pill mentality. They think if there's a problem, either their doctor is going to do something or you may operate and fix something. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, the things you're doing really are at the point that needs to be fixed.
Right.
But the idea that I have to eat better, I have to exercise, I have to take better care of myself. I really do not know where we lost our way.
Right.
I can't pinpoint it to say it was 1992 when everybody took a left-hand turn and went down the wrong road. I don't know. I think it's been a gradual sort of decline. Mm-hmm. And, I sit up at night trying to figure out how do we recover ourselves.
Yeah, it's so multifaceted, too, because you brought up an interesting point, how, things are a lot different. People are getting married later. Actually, it's almost like that family value, it's not there anymore. Yeah. Right? Like, it's not to talk about religion and family and all these things, but you're right. If you go back to the 80s when I was growing up, a kid. And people ate at the table.
Yeah.
With their families.
Yeah.
And then they played outside. It was very different.
Yeah.
But we don't have that anymore.
You know, and when I bring that sense up, you're blasted.
Yeah.
You're blasted.
It's almost like it's controversial to say.
You're
right?
What? How dare you say the nuclear family
right.
is necessary for good health? Well, you know what?
There's a lot of benefits there.
I think there's a lot of benefit to it.
Yeah.
And so the way I look at it is I do think that when you have, now again, people will say, well, we have working parents. I understand that.
Right.
And dad works offshore and mom is a teacher
sure.
and she gets home late and you have latchkey kids and
right.
you know, you have microwave food and this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I understand that, and I understand people are struggling, and it's hard to make all ends meet.
For sure.
But even there, you have to sort of double down and say, how do I undo this knot? Okay,
Right.
I'm not going to just say, oh, I don't have enough money and it's too hard, so I'm going to feed my kids crap.
Right. And no doubt about it that it was easier 30 years ago.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Right.
You know, it was easier to have one person in the household working.
Right.
There wasn't a million apps and online subscriptions and cable TV and season tickets to different things.
Yeah.
You know, like things were a lot more affordable.
Right.
People can afford houses. And you didn't have access to Uber Eats where you can order food out, take out.
No. And I remember as a kid of the 70s, really. So after, in high school, after you went to a movie or you went to somebody's house or, you went to somewhere, you would drive home. There was no 24-hour McDonald's.
Right.
There was none of that. I mean, most of these places closed up at 9. And if it's 10 o'clock, you're coming home from a movie, you're SOL. I mean, but what you would do is you would all go to some kid's house. The mother and father would be there.
Yep.
You'd sit at the table. Maybe the mother would bring out a little leftover food, a little snack.
Right.
Not 1,000-calorie burger, fries, and a shake at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And
most of these homes were cooking food, right?
It was leftovers.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't all takeout.
No. And so, I talk about in the book the 3 F's that you mentioned earlier: family, faith, and food. And that sort of came to be when my mom passed away.
Yep.
I'm sitting with my sister in the funeral home, and the deacon from the church calls me up, and he said, "Joe, tomorrow, everybody would like you to get up and say a few words about your mom." So I'm like, not hard. So I sat with a sticky pad and a pen, and I said, "Okay, family." My mother was the champion of our family, so I said, "Okay, family." Very faithful woman, and I'm like, food. She cooked. She loved to have people over and really look at your expression when you would eat something. And it's not so much, "Oh, Mrs. Galati, you're fantastic." She just wanted to see that David Alfi was over the house and he had some sort of a new taste that she made from scratch. And she absolutely loved that. So I said, family, faith, food, 3 F's. And it's sort of what the book is based on. But as simple as it is, there is some truth to it. And by sitting together around the table, you're going to talk with one another. If there's one parent, both parents, or maybe just the 3 siblings or 2 siblings, you're sitting there with your brother saying, "Hey, what's going on, dude?
Yeah.
What happened at school? What's at work? What about this friend?" Whatever the case may be. Hopefully preparing a meal at home, learning about the value of nutrition, portion control, the value of a decent meal, and do that. You know what I say about food or meals, it's a check the box activity. So it's lunchtime, you're hungry, your staff is hungry, it's 12 o'clock, and you say, we just have to eat to check the box to say, hey, did you eat? Did you eat? Everybody ate. I don't care if you eat garbage. You ate, check the box.
Right.
Rather than saying, wait a second, let me find something nutritious. How's that going to fit with rest of the day of what I'm eating?
Right.
So we have to look at all of our meals just differently.
Definitely. I agree. And now there are a lot of resources to help you. You actually don't need a nutritionist.
Yeah.
Nowadays you can get personalized nutritional advice with ChatGPT, tailored to the hour, to the second.
Yeah.
Based on your activity, your work life, your budget. So there's so many cool tools out there to make it and track it.
With ChatGPT, I'll sit with a patient and they're a little vagrant in how to spiff up their meal a little bit. How to spiff up their meal. I eat eggs and bacon. And I'm like, wait a second. Let's try to think of how you could have maybe an 800 calorie or 600 calorie overnight oats.
Right.
Well, I never made that. Chat GPT, give me 3 versions of overnight oats. What's your favorite vegetable? Blueberries. Blueberries in all of them. Psht. Send it to them, and that's it. It's like, okay, no excuse.
Right.
I'll tell patients, what's your favorite vegetable? And I'm like, give me a low salt, high protein meal with asparagus.
Yep.
And there it is.
There it is. What do you think the biggest difference is between cooking your own food and eating out?
I'd say portion size and lack of unnecessary components. The added fats you don't need, the preservatives, really it's the sugar, salt, and fat that you have. And hopefully it'll be fresher, a little bit fresher.
Yep.
And you have a little bit of control over what you're putting in there.
Yeah. Are seed oils an issue? Because
seed oils, I wouldn't say I'm torn on the whole seed oil discussion, which really has taken off. So we do
hot
know
topic now.
It's really hot, and I want to look at it as not so much as religion, but a little bit of science, a little bit of common sense. And so the problem, as far as I see it with the seed oils, is that they are high in the omega-6 fatty acids, where the fish and certain nuts are high in omega-3 fatty acids. So what I think has happened is we probably were not consuming enough omega-3s. Omega-6s sort of came in, and so the balance of the omega-3 to the omega-6 got lopsided. So all of these other seed oils sort of took over, and my understanding is that this is where, when you have this big divergence of too much omega-6 to the omega-3, it triggers inflammation and obesity, diabetes, and so that is where it is. Now, what's the alternative? Well, I don't know if the chronic disease we see, how much of it actually is directly related to the seed oils.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe you had some fried foods with canola oil.
Right.
Or in your salad, in your family, use canola oil and a little balsamic or something like that instead of olive oil. Okay, watch out for that. And are you getting enough omega-3s? But then it's like you're having a ribeye steak 5 days a week. And you're having double stuffed potatoes.
Yeah.
And you're not exercising. And so, is it really the seed oil? I don't know. It may be contributing to some.
Right.
But if anything, there should be an awareness to say, I need more omega-3s. Go to ChatGPT, give me the 10 foods that are high in omega-3s.
Yeah.
And hell, I'm going to go shopping tonight and get these
those
things.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? What do you hear on the seed oil?
We're hearing that the seed oils are very inflammatory
Yes.
And cause oxidative stress on the body.
Oh, for sure. And oxidative stress is the death knell of our bodies,
right?
Yeah. And so I think for people to say, let's eliminate all seed oils.
It's impossible to eliminate, really.
Yeah, it's impossible to eliminate. But I think if you're aware and limit and know where these seed oils are, and a lot of them are probably in processed foods. Correct. So there's your advertisement to get rid of the processed foods. Yeah. It's
and I am a believer in the whole food diet.
Oh,
it's the way to go.
Absolutely.
I had a guest who said if you can't pronounce the things on the ingredients, don't eat it.
Yeah. And I mean, the other great thing I like is if whatever you're eating doesn't rot by the morning out on the counter, don't eat it. Which is sort of funny, but
you see some people put, I don't know if it was Burger King or McDonald's hamburgers out, and 3 weeks later it still looks good.
It still looked good, absolutely. Yeah. Not that I would know anything about that, but
exactly. So let's get into biohacking a little bit, because if anybody knows how to biohack the body, I think it would be a liver specialist. Yeah. Because the liver is really such a key organ in optimizing health. Let's start with are there any foods or activities that are protective for the liver or enhance function?
Well, I would think that whether it's all under biohacking or just good rules, and I love biohacking. I love the term.
I do too.
I think it's like, wow, we could really sort of get under the hood and change things. So I would say that if you said earlier, the oxidative stress and the free radicals are bad for everything, and certainly for the liver as well. What can you do to eliminate that? So it's going to be your whole food, plant-based diet, supply you with plenty of antioxidants that will keep the liver healthy. Sort of as a side note, the intestinal microbiome, which is the trillion bacteria that are in our small intestine, that has been shown to actually protect against fatty liver, protect against obesity, and inflammation of the liver, because inflammation of the liver or hepatitis is what leads to the fibrosis and the damage. Yeah. So you say, okay, well, wait a second. How do I fix my microbiome? So basically, eat fiber. Yeah. Where do you get fiber? In your head of cabbage that you're going to have tonight, in your broccoli, and in your nuts, and in your chickpeas, and all of that good stuff. The other thing is coffee. Yeah. Brewed coffee. Now, there was sort of something about espresso. I think brewed coffee needs a little bit more time to sort of be in touch with the coffee itself. But brewed coffee is really good at enhancing your microbiome, which cuts down on inflammation, which is going to protect your liver and your heart and your kidneys and make you more insulin sensitive and things like that.
That's interesting. Another thing about coffee is it is the #1 antioxidant in the American diet.
That's right.
Not concentration. I think berries are higher.
Right.
If you're going, in terms of concentration, but actual amount or quantity. Yeah. It's coffee.
It's like how many here had a cup of coffee versus how many people had a berry. Right. It's been probably 10, 15 years they were talking about this with fatty liver, with coffee, and everybody was saying, this is crap. But there really is something to it, to the point where many of us are recommending brewed coffee.
Interesting.
Decaf or caffeinated to our patients.
Yeah, and I know a lot of oncologists who will recommend it for antioxidant properties. Now, my opinion on coffee, I love coffee. Have it every day. But, where it goes, and there are some biohacking benefits of it, the antioxidant, a microbiome I didn't know. Yeah. But also concentration. It's a great stimulant in the morning. However, it can affect sleep negatively. Right. So I try to not have caffeine after noon. Yeah. But definitely not after 2 p.m. I think that's a good rule.
For the longest time, I was bulletproof to caffeine.
Yeah.
I could have it late at night and fall right asleep.
Yeah.
It's been maybe about 6-8 years where even late afternoon, if I get some caffeine, I'm sort of a little jittery at night and can't sleep.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just have it early in the morning.
You're Italian.
I
heard from some Italian friends that, you dare never order a cappuccino after noon in Italy.
No, it is absolutely frowned upon. It is frowned upon to the point where one of the times we went to Italy, somebody like really in a nice way got in our face. And so even when my wife and I are out, we order a cappuccino. She's like, you were really not supposed to order this. And I'm like, I know, but there's no Italianos around here, so we'll just go with the local hicks,
Yeah, exactly.
So
microbiome is really interesting. We can't have a conversation about microbiome and not talk about fecal transplants.
Hey, look, coming to a pharmacy near you pretty soon is going to be
is that right?
Stool in a capsule. And so eating shit is probably going to be taken in a different vein now. But, so for the most part right now in everyday medical therapy, fecal transplant is being used for patients that have Clostridia difficile colitis, which typically is hospital acquired, and it can be a life-threatening
resistant
infection.
to vancomycin.
Resistant to antibiotics, and so you can take harvested stool and the bacteria and either take it as a pill form, as a capsule, or through a colonoscopy, get up into your colon and deposit it and release it. Okay, or even more of a nuisance is through sort of like a nasogastric tube into the small intestine and release it. But commercially, it is now available in pill form.
Interesting.
And so studies have been done, and going off on this obesity thing. So they had two, I don't know if it was mice or rats, but they had an obese mouse, a rat, and a skinny rat, okay? And they took the fat rat and transplanted it with the stool of the skinny guy, the skinny mouse or rat, and they lost weight.
Interesting.
So I think that would be
really,
the ultimate biohack is to how do you
really
beef up your microbiome, and so you're just repopulating with the good bacteria, that and this bacteria, getting the microbiome straight, it impacts your metabolism, how much energy you're burning. So if you look at it and say you got a bad microbiome, you're sort of a slug, you're gaining weight, you're tired, you're pre-diabetic, you have a fatty liver. The reason you got there is because of what you ate.
Yeah.
Right? This was not, well, maybe because you stayed up too late.
Right.
But it's the gut is the pathway to your health and all the chronic disease we're seeing.
Yeah. Family, food, and faith.
I know. It's in there.
Who are the donors? Who are the fecal donors?
I don't know. I don't know if some college kids say, we'll give you $10 for a deposit. I don't know. That's
screening them.
It's going to screen you. You come from a good family and you have a job. We're not taking anybody off the street,
Yeah.
But, who knows? Maybe it's some guy that's a vegetarian or a woman that doesn't drink and they exercise.
Got to be some quality control.
Quality control. How many cups of coffee do you drink?
And that's got to be some bragging rights right there.
Yeah.
If you can donate your shit.
I know. Hey, my shit's better than yours. And they're selling it,
And
so
saving lives.
I don't know. It's I think we'll find out. We'll go downtown. It's not the blood bank. I don't know where the stool bank.
That's interesting. Do you think that antibiotics in our foods, pesticides, antibiotics in our meats are affecting the microbiome of the populations?
I'd have to think so. And when you look at, which is a whole other big, massive, sensitive topic, this big farming, where instead of having the mom and pop farm and they have their little heads of cattle and they know that, they're going to give, 100 quality heads, or they make chickens or pork or, whatever. Now it's hundreds of thousands of acres and they're owners and there's investors, and they say, hey, how many heads are you going to get this year? And you're down 10%? Well, give them steroids, give them antibiotics, and go from there. So I do think that we're passively ingesting all of this. And even if it is trace amounts, it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. We're living in a very delicate balance of health, disease, unhealthiness, and that's the way we were meant to function. I mean, a finely tuned machine. You take any machine, your car, and you just take a screwdriver to one part and say, let's just turn this a quarter of a turn. Yeah. And like, it's not going to run right.
That's a great analogy.
And so,
especially over time.
Right. And you know, what I think is that, you know, there are some, you know, diseases or conditions or interventions that are very abrupt and they happen now. So if you have a mouth infection, you have, and I hate to pick on having a bad tooth, but you know, that's the closest thing I could think of what you are an expert in. You have a bad tooth, either you're going to pull the tooth out or give them antibiotics, and within 3 to 5 days, you will be better. There's a problem, there's an intervention, we're done. Right. We are in, when you're talking about food and these antibiotics that maybe you're ingesting, or how much exercise, and are you getting sleep? The latency time is so long. Right. It may take years, both good and bad, to have the cumulative bad effect of eating all this processed food. Right. You're not going to get sick tonight. Right. You're not going to get sick tomorrow. But do this over 10 years, you'll be screwed up. And so the flip side, to say, now I have to exercise. I have to eat better. I'm going vegan because I listen to Dr. Alfi. Right. Well, okay, good. But the latency to figuring this all out could be 10 years before they turn around their fatty liver, their cardiometabolic health. And that really, and that's the problem, I think.
It influences behavior, right? Because you're not seeing results right away. And obviously the lower brain is going to want to snack and sit on the couch and take the shoes off and all that thing. And the higher brain knows that's not good for you, but it's not going to win because the results are not there. So I think people really have to be active about thinking about it, you know, and writing it down and journaling and really making it a priority.
Now, by chance, did you read the book by Peter Attia?
I haven't yet. I know the book.
It's called Outlive. Outlive, I think, is the name of the book.
I don't know.
So he talks about medicine 1.0, medicine 2.0, medicine 3.0. We are living now in medicine 2.0, where we're very good at responding to a problem. Correct. I'm very good. Somebody comes in, they're cirrhotic, they're bleeding. We could fix them. Right. You know, you're good at reconfiguring how things look or fix bad teeth. Medicine 3.0 is really having a 10, 15, 20-year look into the future to say, hey, what about my family? What about my predispositions? How do I biohack today? How do I intervene now so that when I'm 45, I don't have diabetes? What do I have to do at 25? Correct. And I'd like to think that sort of I'll call them kids, but they're not kids. The kids of today, 20, 25 years old, I think they might be more interested. I think they are spending a lot of time on social media, and there's maybe 2% of the information is good, but they are being exposed to this. Say, how could I, you know, sort of biohack now? And I think that's the way. If we're going to really address this tsunami of chronic disease and misery,
I agree. And it's got to be a movement, and I like the biohacking as a movement. Yeah, for sure. On that subject, glutathione, transdermal glutathione for the liver, is that protective?
Glutathione, in certain conditions, it's deficient when it causes, it's more of this oxidative stress and free radicals. I would think that there's people doing it. There are people that are doing, and we talked about this before, the NAD infusions and glutathione, where there's some evidence that subjectively people feel better. And certain biochemical aspects get a little bit better. If you really dig hard, the controlled studies are a little lean at this point. So I'm sort of neutral on that one.
We don't really have good evidence.
Yeah, I think it's it all needs to be studied, I think.
For sure.
Without a doubt.
For sure. What are Dr. Galati's 3 biggest biohacking tips?
Well, I think fresh fruit and vegetables. If you want to follow the Mediterranean diet, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Lots of citrus, nuts, beans, limit pork, beef, more chicken. Though you don't have to eat chicken. You could sort of go the whole vegetarian route and fish if you want. I would say alcohol. If alcohol is sort of a biohack or just lessons on a healthy liver, alcohol excess that I see is frightening.
Yeah.
It really is.
Are you busier than ever?
Yeah. I mean, we are.
COVID
was a disaster.
Yeah, people were drinking.
Yeah, the amount of people that were drinking, they were closed in, they lost their job, they lost their money, and they went to alcohol. And I would say, the rest is important, sleep, as well as exercise.
Yeah.
I know you exercise a lot,
Yep.
and it has to be part of a prescription for, if you want to call it longevity, but just wellness. You have to. You have to exercise.
Yeah. So interesting. We can bring, top experts, specialists from every discipline in medicine, and it always is going to come down to sleep, eat well, and exercise.
It is.
Right? That's biohacking there.
But, so many people just want to make it more complicated.
Right, but it's really not.
It isn't. And, when I see patients, and I would say the one thing that will make me literally go ballistic in front of the patient, in a nice way, is when we size up their problem and we'll start giving some recommendations, some guidance, how to approach this, and the patient will start laughing. Okay? Now, I understand it's probably they're laughing out of being a little anxious, and it's a little bit of a reflex.
Yep.
But they will start laughing like, you want me to eat more vegetables? And what do you mean I cannot have my bowl of ice cream at night?
Right.
And, the staff that's with me, they will look at me and they say, okay, he's going to go off now. And I really have to sort of bring them down to earth to say, look, you're sitting here because you have a 30% chance of being alive in 1 year.
Yeah.
What are you going to say to your wife? What are you going to say to your grandkids that you love? Grandpa didn't give a crap and he wanted his Bluebell ice cream.
Right.
No, it makes no sense. And so the community at large just needs to realize good health doesn't come by accident.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I mean, unless you are blessed with the best genes on earth and or you live in, somewhere in Sicily or somewhere in the Mediterranean or the Middle East where you're surrounded by good food.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Then it's easy.
You got to make now more an effort than ever.
But in Houston, Texas, man.
Yeah, forget about it.
Man, the odds are against you.
It really is.
One of the fattest cities in the country.
Yeah. I mean, the food's delicious. The portions are large.
Yeah. Number 1 eat out city in the country.
Yeah. I want to end this with something that's really interesting to me in my observations as a physician and surgeon, and something that's I've really evolved with is we talked about food, we've talked about family, but I like that you put faith there as an F, and I want to get your input about why you put that there and what that means in terms of medicine.
Well, and health. I was born and raised Roman Catholic in New York, Italian family.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. Catholicism doesn't hold the key to everything.
Right.
But I believe that just about every single religion on earth, there is a family component to it.
Yeah.
Okay? Families will get together and celebrate a religious festivity or event or something. So everybody, the community is getting around, church, temple, whatever the case may be. Most religions are going to support family.
Yes. And community.
Community, relationships with others, take care of our elders.
Yes.
Take care of our children. And so you're building this pyramid of me, us, the bigger us, and you have to do that. And I believe that we are given a gift from heaven or wherever that bigger place is, that this is respect for life.
Yes.
And to respect your body, have the dignity of taking care of your body. Because I think people generally are good, you know? People are good, but they need a wake-up call to say, hey, take care of your God-given gift here.
Yes.
And you know what? If it's not you, if you're fine, but it is one of your kids is maybe straying off.
Right.
It's sort of your responsibility to see that, or if you have a relative, or you have a your BFF is just for whatever reason just not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
We sort of have a right to intervene in a sense and say, look, let me show you. There's too much at stake here. Definitely. And that's where I think the faith part comes in. Yes. And again, it's I don't want to say it's hard to sell, but I think we need to think that way.
Yeah,
the bigger outside of ourselves in a sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, not to take things for granted. I think that's easy to do. Not at all. Yeah. That was fantastic. Please, for the audience there, share, comment, like, subscribe.
Yeah. I mean, you got it all here, David.
Yeah. And we end this podcast with a question. Who is the greatest basketball player of all time?
Well, I'd say, growing up in New York, was it Willis Reed of the 1970s Knicks or Dr. J when he was on the New York Nets?
Yep.
When that was still the ABA.
Those are good ones. Willis Reed coming back from the tunnel.
Willis Reed.
This is a good scene.
Willis Reed.
Let's add.
But
Willis
I have no problem with
Kobe.
With Mr. Bryant here.
Yeah, you gotta love the Mamba mentality.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
David. Thank you. You got a great thing going on here.
Appreciate it. Stay tuned.